So here's more of how they discredited people. This came out in some new more Twitter files, and they gave it to this guy, Michael Schellenberger. And it sounds like a comedy name, but he says, so he did a whole thread on he did a thread about the Hunter Biden laptops. So watch this. This is very interesting. He says, efforts continue to influence Twitter's Yoel Roth. Now, we told you who Yoel Roth was. He was the guy who was like the head censor guy over at Twitter. And who is now pretending he's a victim. No. In September 20, I mean, he was ruining people's reputations left and right. And now somehow this guy who got millions of dollars to ruin people's reputations, who were just telling the truth while he was leaving child porn on the site, by the way. In September 2020, Roth participated in an Aspen Institute tabletop exercise on a potential hack and dump operation relating to Hunter Biden. The goal was to shape how the media covered it and how social media carried it. So Max, tell people what is this Aspen Institute? Tell me what this is and why is this important?
Well, this is a hugely important dimension of the Twitter files that I chose to highlight because I thought it wasn't getting enough attention, because it shows that mainstream media editors and journalists actually participated in the plot to censor and suppress news of Hunter Biden's laptop because it was going to damage Joe Biden's election prospects. And it just shows how connected the mainstream media is to U.S. intelligence and you could say the Democratic Party, and I know people on the right will say this is the left, but it's really the uniparty.
That's right. Yeah, people make that mistake. Like Elon Musk can't stop doing that, and they equate the Democratic Party with the left. The Democratic Party is Joe Biden is the furthest thing from a lefty. He's been a right-wing maniac his entire goddamn career.
This is the regime, and there are a lot of Republicans that are a part of it too.
That's right. So you go on to say top corporate media editors and national security hacks were convened at the Aspen Institute and programmed on how to frame disclosures from Hunter Biden's laptop as a Russian hack and dump operation. And they were given instructions on how to be effective anti-Trump Putin info warriors. And so who was there? The organizer was Vivian Schiller, the former CEO of NPR. Former head of news at Twitter, former general manager of the New York Times, former chief digital officer of NBC News. Attendees included Meta's Facebook's head of security policy and top national security reporters for the New York Times, Washington Post, and others. So by mid-September, you can't overstate this. Like, this is such a big deal that these people all got together to try to figure out how we're going to cover a story, like in a way that doesn't hurt the establishment. That's what that is, right? How do we have people cover this story in a way that's friendly to the establishment? Right now, the establishment is Joe Biden and his regime, his administration, and the Democrats who control the government, right? That's what this is, right?
And the neocons that came from the George W. Bush Republicans who effectively support and control Biden as well. I mean, what we see here, we see U.S. intelligence and, the feds, the mainstream media, the Democratic Party elite, and, you could include Bush Republicans, George W. Bush Republicans in that. Those are the four forces that comprise the regime. And then, I guess some aspect of the military as well. And in this case, they're holding a secret tabletop exercise, sort of like the kind that was held right ahead of the appearance of COVID-19 by some of these same forces. Johns Hopkins University hosted it along with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And here you have the Aspen Institute, which is another kind of neoliberal U.S. government regime cutout that's funded by corporations and billionaires. And they bring in all these journalists and they game out a scenario So imagine you're a journalist and you come in and you're participating in this exercise, and the scenario doesn't actually convey the reality of the Hunter Biden laptop, but you begin to believe that it's the reality. Because in this scenario, the Hunter Biden laptop was a Russian disinformation effort, and various reporters were recruited to disseminate Russian disinformation to the public in order to become unwitting vehicles for Russian meddling and the destabilization of the American political and democratic process. And that's the nightmare scenario for every mainstream reporter and pretty much any reporter right now. So these reporters are brought in and they're like, this is you're playing this part, but you don't want to do that. And therefore you don't want to give any oxygen to the Hunter Biden laptop. And you have to go out and tell other reporters not to be an unwitting vehicle for the Russian FSB or GRU, whoever wants to destroy our democracy. In reality, the Hunter Biden laptop came out because he brought it to a repair shop and it was all real, and Russia had nothing to do with it. As we now know, 50 former CIA employees and officials who declared it to the laptop to be textbook Russian disinformation have been totally discredited. They lied. And they were doing their job by lying. So here the mainstream media is participating, and you can look at their guidelines for what they call propaganda reporting and how they're being told how to respond to the laptop. One thing they're supposed to do, careful, slow deliberation, which is code for delay the story for as long as possible.
Slow
because
walk.
This is October 2020. So delay it for another few weeks, and then we're in there, baby. We're in the White House. 4 C's: cooperate, contextualize, control, and curate. Cooperate with who? Cooperate with U.S. intelligence, the FBI. Contextualize, brand it as Russian propaganda. Control, do not let the message out. And curate, you are in control of the message.
You cherry pick the evidence so that curate means cherry pick, and don't show people evidence that would go counter to our narrative about the Hunter's laptop. Don't
tell them what the contents are.
Yes. And tell them that and in any content that does get out, you say it's made up. You say it's Russian disinformation. The idea was that somehow Russians put stuff on the laptop. That's the idea. And then he brought the laptop to a guy. Why would none of that is again? It's so classic FBI bullshit story. So what's interesting is just how overwhelming. So the FBI had a direct portal to the people at Twitter. So this guy, Chan, right? So he's an FBI guy, and Roth.
Elvis Chan.
Elvis is his name, right? It's hilarious. And this guy Roth, who's the head censor guy over at Twitter, they had set up an encrypted messaging network so employees from the FBI and Twitter could communicate. Encrypting. And they were going to share top secret information with people at frickin' Twitter. And why was that okay? Because the people at Twitter are FBI. That's why they were okay with it. They also agreed to create a virtual war room for all the internet industry, plus the FBI and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Unbelievable. Wired. So this, and then this is a great catch by you. You said Wired, that magazine, which was spawned as a PR vehicle for U.S. intelligence, hyped the 2020. I didn't know that, by the way. I thought Wired was a real magazine.
Actually, in the Real Anthony Fauci, there's a great section about it that's adapted from some reporting Children's Health Defense is done on Wired.
Okay.
I would recommend that to anyone who wants to know the background, but just the really short version is that it was spawned with seed money from Nicholas Negroponte, who is the brother of former Director of National Intelligence John Negroponte, who is also a spook, because they wanted tech reporting to basically hype up the tech that was being spun out by vehicles like the CIA's research and development arm. And they didn't want to support the kind of tech community that someone like Julian Assange represented, that included like people that were into hacking the system. So that's really what Wired is, basically just a bulletin board for the intelligence services in the military. And Noah Shachtman, who was a part of this meeting at the Aspen Institute launched his career at Wired after selling his personal blog to a military contractor, and basically became a propagandist for the military intelligence apparatus. And today he's the editor of Rolling Stone.
Yes,
he presided over that fake ivermectin story about hospitals filling up with ivermectin victims, for example.
Yes. Yeah, I knew who that was. So Wired, the magazine, was spawned as a PR vehicle for the U.S. intelligence. They hyped the 2020 Hunter Biden tabletop exercise. Reporters were given instructions to slow disclosures on the laptop, contextualize as Russian hacking, doubt their veracity, and control the message. So this is what makes... So how could you not be? So if you could think of it, the establishment's doing it. So just like when people were like, hey, is there a cabal of behind the scenes people trying to influence the election? And then you see a headline in Time magazine, there was a behind the scenes cabal of well-connected people for the establishment to try to control the election. You saw that they did the article themselves. I think it was Crystal Ball's sister who wrote it. They did it themselves. They tell you this. Do you remember that? And so now you see this, and they're having these meetings in Aspen telling people how to... There isn't anything that you can think of, they're doing it. Any nefarious criminal thing you can think of, the CIA already has a plan for it, and they're doing it. So just like everybody was thinking, and you were told you were crazy conspiracy theorists to think the government and big pharma and social media were working together to censor accurate information. Of course they want to censor accurate information. That's why they've always done that. Again, manufacturing consent. The corporate news media isn't there to inform you about what's happening in the world. It's there to put propaganda in your head that the billionaire class wants you to think, so that they can control you. Do you think Do you think they could get away with sending $100 billion in your fucking face to the most corrupt country in a goddamn world while people are dying and living under every bridge in this country? You think they could do that without a sophisticated media propaganda machine? They couldn't. That's why they need it, and that's why people like us are a threat, and that's why my Wikipedia page looks like it does. I'm sorry, Max. Go ahead.
Yeah, and again, Wikipedia, I mean, when we see the amount of state involvement in Wikipedia, it's going to be massive. But what's so remarkable here is that these reporters are not just being told what to say, they're being told what not to report or to not report a major story, and they all comply. And there's no curiosity there. I mean, this is a new level of propaganda. It's propaganda by omission. Just not letting the public know that this major scandal explodes. And so then it only gets reported by the New York Post, this Murdoch tabloid. And so then everyone else can just dismiss that as right-wing, pro-Trump Murdoch propaganda. It's not real. And they succeeded. Well, one person who tried to break through was Glenn Greenwald at The Intercept. And, that was the end of him there.
Yes, that's right. He had to leave The Intercept, a publication he founded, because they wouldn't let him tell the truth. They wouldn't let him tell the truth about a real story, as they were doing propaganda for the establishment to try to influence the election. That's what Intercept was doing. They were trying doing what they were saying that Russia was doing. They were actually trying to influence the election. Go ahead, Max. Sorry.
And there's a connection to The Intercept here. I mean, these reporters are basically being cultivated as missionaries to go out to the rest of their media colleagues and tell them not to report on this because this is a hack and dump operation. And you had Claire Wardle at the Aspen Institute tabletop exercise. She is one of the founders of First Draft, which is another Omidyar operation or Omidyar outfit. Pierre Omidyar, the owner of The Intercept, who is a U.S. intelligence cutout himself. And First Draft focuses on fighting misinformation in media. And here what they're doing is actually encouraging it. And you have someone from that same Intercept network that would not allow Glenn Greenwald to get this story through participating in this exercise.
Amazing. I like this tweet. As I revealed, Washington Post national security correspondent, I don't know who that is. How do you say that name?
Ellen Nakashima.
had her devices hacked by the CIA operatives when she visited Julian Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. She knew the FBI opened her phone, but never reported on what should be a Titanic scandal. So that's just more evidence of the in-bedness that the reporters, journalists at places like the Washington Post and the kind of relationship they have with the people they're supposed to be reporting on. They're actually in bed repeating. They're actually not doing their job. They're propagandists. And why wouldn't you report on that story? And the reason why she wouldn't report on the CIA doing that to her, my guess is because she wants to be fed more stories from the CIA that she can then print. And
exactly.
Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just imagine if Russia's FSB had seized the phones under cover of behind the cover of some security guards of U.S. reporters, opened them, then the truth came out. It would be on the front page of every U.S. newspaper. Yeah. Russian diplomats would be sent home. Sanctions would be imposed. But this story had to come out at the Grayzone and a few other small publications that Ellen Nakashima went to visit Julian Assange. The chief national security correspondent of the Washington Post went to visit Julian Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy. I guess she was trying to get a quote or some information for a story she was working on. It wasn't to like show sympathy for Assange. And at the door, a security guard who she thought was employed by the Ecuadorian government was actually a CIA asset because the CIA had used a Spanish security firm to infiltrate the embassy, took her cell phone and her laptop. And while she was meeting with Assange, they opened the phone and laptop. They took photos of it. They had been given instructions by Langley to look for any sort of Russian operatives that were visiting Assange and to open every single phone and laptop. I got a picture of her phone. This all came out in a Spanish trial. So if you read the article that's linked in that tweet, you'll see the picture of Ellen Nakashima's phone. She never commented on this. She never wrote about it. She would not respond to my request for comment. And it really tells you everything you need to know about how the corporate press operates. They will not bite the hand that feeds them. And that is the hand of our kind of secret government that's given a $90 billion black budget every year. That's the CIA.
And here's friend of the show, Fiorella Isabel from Convo Couch. She tweeted out that there's some vindication. Some of us were targeted via Twitter. I'm still shadow banned as hell, but here's my name before I changed my handle, highlighted as one of the accounts that was supposedly spreading Ukrainian neo-Nazi propaganda, or as some of us call it, the truth. And so there's over here, her name shows up right here. She has it circled. And so this was all like keywords. So
Aaron Matei is in there.
I'm not on that. It hurts my feelings.
Aaron and Anya are in there.
So so there's Fiorella. Let's see. Where? Oh,
Anya's right under Rodolfo. Anya.
Oh, ours Anya, Aaron Mate. How come I'm not on there? It really hurts my feelings.
Yeah, it sucks.
That sucks, and you're not on there too.
Yeah, I feel like I earned that.
Me too. God damn. All right. Well, thanks, Max, for sitting in. Everybody check out his work over at the Grayzone. I appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
And if you're in LA, we're now live on Pacifica KPFK 90.7 at 5 p.m. every Tuesday, the Grayzone show.
Really?
That's excellent.
That's fantastic. That's great.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we feature some Jimmy Dore material on there every week, so check it out.
That was a long time home of the Jimmy. That was the birth of the Jimmy Dore show, was at KPFK.
Really?
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, we started doing the Jimmy Dore show there in, I think, 2009. And it was a great ride. It was a great ride. So, I was able to say anything. I just got worried about anyway, I had to leave that station. But anyway, it's great that you're there. Great that they're bringing back real lefties to KPFK. KPFK became a Russiagate shithole.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Ian Masters and all the Cold War.
I mean, and I liked all those people. All those people were good people, and they just got wrecked by Donald Trump and Russia. And they just threw their critical thinking skills out the window, and it made me embarrassed to be a part of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So we're doing our best, hoping to expand to.
So they had Scott Horton over there. They had shows like mine, but this wasn't enough of them. And still to this day, they still have too many shit liberties. But by bringing you on, that's a good sign that they're trying to get better. So that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Max. We'll talk to you soon. Let's go to a
All
card.
right. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Doing stand-up comedy in March 5th in Tempe, Arizona, March 25th in Palm Springs. April, we're going to Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Nashville, Tennessee. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all the tickets.